My name is Alex. I have a wife, a 6-year-old son, and a job I don't hate. Most people would call that a success, but that's only if you don't count the one thing that's been haunting me since I was 9, my sister. Her name was Emily. We were both dumped in an orphanage when we were too young to understand why. Our mother dropped us off one night and never came back. I remember Emily clutching my hand so tight, she left marks on my skin. Back then, we had a secret game. We made up nonsense phrases only we understood. Our favorite was the honey cat always finds the way. It didn't mean anything except it did. To us it meant, no matter what happens, I'll find you. When I was 10, and she was 8, a family came and adopted me. They said they could only take one child. I cried. I screamed. I begged them to take us both. Emily stood behind the social worker, staring at me with huge terrified eyes. I remember the last thing she said to me. Don't forget the honey cat. I never did. I spent the next 2 decades wondering where she went. Whether she was safe. Whether she was alive. I searched for her when I turned 18. Tried to get records, but everything was sealed. My adoptive parents weren't interested in helping. Eventually life just moved on. Until last fall, I was traveling for work, visiting a small city I'd never been to before. It was cold and rainy, and I remember being annoyed that the cab dropped me off a block away from my hotel. I had to walk past the train station. That's where I saw her, or rather, that's where I heard her. A woman sitting on the ground near the wall, wrapped in a dirty coat, head down, mumbling to herself. I almost passed by, until I heard the words honey cat, always finds the way. I froze. My heart literally skipped. I turned and looked at her. Really looked. Her hair was a mess. Her face smudged with dirt. And her eyes, they were empty, distant. But something in me just knew. I knelt down and asked, "What did you just say?" She looked at me, squinting. "Honey cat," she whispered again. Then she smiled, like it was some kind of joke. Only she understood. I didn't know what to do. Was I crazy? Was this even possible? I sat down beside her on the cold sidewalk and said, "Emily?" She flinched. "No, not Emily. Not anymore." She looked past me, then whispered, "They burned that name." I didn't leave her. I bought her a hot drink, got her into my hotel room with the help of user 1, the receptionist, who said, "Sir, are you sure this is safe?" I said, "She's my sister, the woman." I didn't want to call her the homeless woman. Not anymore. Sat on the edge of the bed, like she didn't know where she was. I asked her questions. Her answers were scattered, half mumbled. But then she said something that sent a chill down my spine. They said I had a brother once, but he was taken away, because rich people always win. I didn't sleep that night. She curled up in the armchair, near the window, wrapped in a blanket I gave her, and stared into the dark, like she was waiting for something, or someone, to come take her away again. I didn't push her. I didn't ask more questions. I just watched her, and tried to match the face I saw now, to the little girl, from my memories. In the morning, I ordered breakfast. She didn't want to eat at first. Then she asked, "Do you have any milk?" That was Emily. She used to hate juice, soda, always wanted just plain milk with everything. I nodded, trying not to lose it. She drank it like it was the first real thing she'd had in years. I asked her name again. She paused for a long time, and said, "They called me Lacey, but that's not mine." So I said gently, "Can I call you Emily?" She looked down, and whispered, "If you want." I took a few days off work, and stayed in that city with her. I rented a small apartment for a week. so she wouldn't have to sleep in the hotel lobby. Once we checked out, every day we talked. Not much, but enough. I told her about my life, about my wife, Kara, my son Mason, my job in tech, my house in the suburbs. She listened like I was reading a novel she used to love, but had forgotten. Every now and then, she'd ask something random. Do you remember the orange swings? Or did we ever have a dog? I answered everything I could. One night, she came into the tiny apartment kitchen while I was heating soup and said, "Do you still draw bees?" That stopped me cold. I used to draw bees on everything. Homework napkins, even my arm. Emily used to laugh and say I had a secret bee army. No one else would know that. I turned around slowly and said, "Only when I miss you." She smiled. For the first time. Really smiled. And then, like a switch flipped, she started to cry. I held her. And for the first time in over 20 years I had my sister back. But the next morning, she was gone. I panicked, ran out into the street, asking user 2, the neighbor downstairs, "Did you see a woman leave?" He said, "She walked out early. Didn't say a word. Looked kinda scared." I found her 2 blocks away, sitting behind a dumpster, knees to her chest. I said, "Why'd you leave?" She didn't look at me. "Because good things don't last, and I didn't want to ruin your life." I knelt down. "Emily, you are part of my life. You always were." She said, "No, that boy you were. He's gone. And this version of me, I don't even know who she is." I said, "Then we figure it out together." Miut. Inik. Yeus. Inant. Asing me. Emily didn't remember everything. Some pieces came in flashes. Others only surfaced when I asked the right questions, but slowly, like brushing away dust from an old photograph, her story began to take shape. She had been adopted 2 years after I was taken. The couple from a nearby town. On paper they looked perfect, well off, educated, no criminal history. But papers lie. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted control. Emily said the woman, user 3, her adoptive mother, was cold, clinical, obsessed with discipline. The man, user 4, was worse, violent, manipulative. He told Emily that no one would ever love her the way he did. She was 13 when she ran away the first time. She ended up in a shelter, then back in the system. But by then, she was labeled difficult. No one wanted to take her in again. She bounced between group homes, sometimes the street, sometimes juvenile centers. At 16, she disappeared. No records, no contacts. I now knew why. She had stopped using her name. She told me she spent years trying not to exist. "It's easier," she said, "when no one expects anything from you." I called my wife that night. "Kara," I said, "I found my sister." There was a long silence. Then, "You're kidding." She was homeless, living on the street. "Alex, are you sure it's her?" "Yes." Another pause. "And what now?" "You bring her home." "And what?" "She plays aunt to our son." "She's family." "So are we," she said quietly. "Don't forget that." I didn't argue, but something shifted. The next day, I brought Emily back to my city. I didn't take her to our house. I knew Kara needed time. Instead, I found a short-term rental, set her up with some clothes, got her into a clinic for a checkup. She hated it, but she went. For me. When I visited home, Mason asked, "Daddy, why are you gone so much?" Kara didn't say anything. Eventually, I brought them together. We met in a park. Mason ran to me and hugged my legs. Kara stood behind him, stiff. Emily sat on the bench, quiet, fidgeting with her sleeves. I said, "Emily, this is Kara, and this is Mason." Emily tried to smile. "Hey kid." Mason stared at her. "Are you the sad lady?" Kara stepped forward, tense. "Mason, that's rude." But Emily just laughed. "Yeah, I guess I am." Mason tilted his head. "Why are you sad?" Emily looked at him for a long time. "Because I forgot how to be anything else." Kara pulled him close. "Okay, I think we're done here," I said. "Kara, no. You don't get to drop a stranger into our lives and expect everything to just adjust. She's not a stranger. She is to me, and to him." We didn't speak much after that. YS2. 2 days later, she stood at the door of our bedroom, arms crossed, eyes red from crying. "I love you, Alex," she said, "but I won't raise our son in the middle of this chaos." I said nothing. "She needs help." "Yes, but we're not equipped for this." And Mason, he's confused. He's scared of her. He told me she talks to herself in the mirror. She's been through trauma, Kara. She's healing. She's unstable. I sat down, hands in my lap. "She's my sister, and I'm your wife. He's your child." She walked out of the room. She didn't slam the door. That almost hurt more. I didn't sleep that night either. I kept thinking about the last time I saw Emily before she disappeared again. She had asked, "Would you still want me if I was nothing but broken parts?" I said, "You're not broken. You're just unstitched." I went to the apartment the next morning, but she was gone again. This time, I found her on the train platform, sitting on a bench, clutching a duffel bag. She didn't look at me when I sat down. "I don't want to ruin what you have," she said. "I know I don't belong." "You do belong," I said. "You always did." "I'm tired, Alex. I'm tired of trying to be real again." I pulled something from my jacket pocket. A napkin. A napkin. I'd drawn a bee on it just like I used to. I handed it to her. She looked at it, and something in her cracked. "Why do you care so much?" "Because when they took you away, they didn't just take my sister. They took half of me." That day she didn't leave. I moved her into a long-term care program. She resisted at first, but slowly began to settle. She started therapy, took medication, went to group sessions. I visited her every day. Kara and I separated for a while. She needed space. Mason stayed with her, and I understood. But something shifted. 3 months into the program, I came to visit Emily and found her painting. The staff had given her some acrylics and brushes. She was making a small canvas of a cat made of honey, with wings. She saw me and smiled. "Guess what?" "What?" I remembered something. "What did you remember?" She pointed at the cat. "That this little guy always finds the way." 6 months passed. Emily moved into a small studio apartment run by a community support group. She painted almost every day. The bees. The honey cat. Even scenes from the orphanage she could now remember clearly. Her eyes were brighter. Her voice steadier. She wasn't the same person I found by the train station. But she wasn't the girl I lost either. She was something new. One day she called me and said, "I had coffee with a friend." I almost dropped my phone. "A friend?" She laughed. "Yeah, like a normal human being." Weird, right? Things with Kara were slower. She came to see Emily one afternoon. I didn't ask her to. I think curiosity won. Mason was with her. Emily stood awkwardly in the kitchen, wringing her hands. Mason walked up and asked, "Do you still talk to mirrors?" Emily crouched down. "Not lately. They got boring." Mason grinned. "Good." Kara watched them, arms crossed, cautious. "She seems better," she said to me later. "She is better." We sat on a bench outside, while Emily and Mason played with sidewalk chalk. Kara finally said, "I was wrong." I turned to her, surprised. "She's, not dangerous, just hurt." I nodded. "We all are. We didn't fix everything overnight. That's not how life works." But we started talking again. Then we went on walks. Then dinner. Then slowly we became a family. Again, one evening, nearly a year after I first heard her say the words again, Emily came over for dinner. She brought a gift, an old photo, restored and framed. It was us as kids, sitting on the orphanage steps, her arm around me, both of us holding paper bees we'd made out of construction paper and glue. She handed it to Mason. "So, you don't forget what real family looks like." He hung it in his room. Later that night, after Mason went to bed, Emily stood in the backyard with me, looking up at the stars. She said, "I think I believe in hope." Again. I said, "Good. Because I never stopped." Then she whispered, just like she did 20 years ago, "The honey cat always finds the way." And this time, I didn't cry. I just smiled, because she had found her way back, and so had I.